Not everyone will enter the next era. Only those who wake their minds from habit, who learn to see beneath comfort and act from depth. History moves by rhythms, not marches. Empires, technologies, and moral ecologies wax and wane. Each age accentuates certain human capacities and punishes the absence of others. When the climate of life changes, the forms and dispositions that once guaranteed survival may become liabilities. The threshold of an era is a pressure point, a reality check, where accumulated habits and inherited comforts are tested against new demands. The question is simple and devastating: can your interior architecture bear the conditions of what is coming? To stand at this threshold is to confront two truths. First, the world is not neutral. It rewards certain types of attention, moral weight, and relational competence. Second, your current orientation, the set of habits that feels safe and normal, is likely tuned to the previous climate. That mismatch is the seed of both anxiety and possibility. Anxiety warns that something must change. Possibility whispers that the work is available to those willing to pay its price. This era asks for a different economy. Short-term optimization and performative speed, so prized in prior decades, no longer suffice when systems become interdependent and fragile. The new currency is depth, the capability to tolerate complexity long enough to see causal chains, the patience to rework institutions slowly, the moral courage to make decisions that have deferred payoff but systemic benefit. Depth is not glamorous. It is a discipline measured in daily acts, the refusal to react, the commitment to repair, the willingness to be corrected. The threshold is also clarifying because it imposes cost. Comfort becomes friction. To remain the same costs more inattention and shrinking possibilities. To change costs the labor of unlearning and the pain of losing roles that once defined you. But this pain is not punishment, it is selection. Scarcity of time and energy forces priority. You will either conserve your life for what truly matters or scatter it in pleasing but inconsequential activity. How do people cross? Not via sudden heroism, but through steady interior work. They cultivate attention, practice repair, form loyal networks, and reorient language toward purpose. They choose courage over image, fidelity over applause. That steady masonry accumulates until the interior habitus is strong enough to withstand external shocks. This kind of preparation is invisible and therefore misunderstood. Those who build it are often silent, while the loud are mistaken for leaders. But true leadership in an age of flux will be furnished by the quiet people who have ordered their inner lives. Finally, the threshold carries a moral test. It invites not only competence but care. The awakened are not merely survivors. They are stewards asked to design systems that increase the possibility of life for others. This expands the criteria for survival from a private to a communal scale. One who treasures only personal advantage may persist briefly, but will have contributed to the degradation that fosters collapse. The era rewards those who see beyond their comforts toward shared flourishing. Stand at the threshold willingly, accept the cost, do the inner work, invest attention well, and you will not merely survive change, you will help to shape it. We are marvelous at repeating ourselves. Habit is the brain's kindness. It reduces the cognitive tax of living by routinizing the small tasks. But habit, left unchecked, calcifies into autopilot. A sleepwalking culture is not an indictment of intelligence. It is the accumulation of unexamined defaults and choices deferred until they calcify into identity. In such a culture, efficiency is mistaken for wisdom, and the machinery of life hums while the ship's captain sleeps. Sleepwalking has 4 dangers. First, it makes systems brittle. If everyone performs roles out of habit without questioning function, emergent threats exploit the gaps. Second, it concentrates error. When routine replicates faulty practices, small mistakes amplify into systemic failure. Third, it sterilizes imagination. Repetition reduces the appetite for novelty, and a people accustomed to comfort cannot easily conceive alternatives. Fourth, it undermines moral vigilance. Habitual action dulls sensitivity to suffering and to the ethical stakes of policy and design. The remedy is not to abolish habit, but to create reflective ritual. Deliberate interruptions that reintroduce choice. This can look like scheduled silence before meetings, weekly reviews that ask, "What assumptions are we carrying?" or public rituals of accountability, where leaders report not only successes, but mistakes and the lessons learned. Such interruptions are small but catalytic. They puncture the trance of automaticity and invite attention to return to the driver's seat. Personal practices matter too. The antidote to sleepwalking begins with simple acts: device-free dinners, a short morning review of intentions, 10-minute walks without podcasts. These micro breaks of presence retrain the nervous system to default toward attention rather than distraction. Over months, they change the baseline from reaction to response. Sleepwalking also thrives because systems reward surface productivity. Meetings that look busy but produce nothing, constant availability valorized as dedication, and social media metrics mistaken for influence, all incentivize behavior that simulates action without depth. Change incentives measure outcomes, not motion. Reward repair over spectacle. Build norms that value sustained attention and ethical restraint. Culture change is slow, but contagious. A single team that models reflective practice can shift an organization's expectations. When one leader insists on a weekly slow hour for deep work and keeps it sacrosanct, others notice. The contagion of presence moves outward like a tide. In this way, rescue is social as much as personal. You join practices with others until presence becomes the new default. In some, refuse to live on autopilot. Install small shocks of presence into your day. Measure your outputs by fidelity to important aims, not by how much you moved. The future will not be saved by busy people. It will be preserved by those who wake, and then teach others to wake with them. Attention is not a neutral faculty. It is the primary act of creation. The world arranges itself around what you repeatedly notice. To awaken attention is to reclaim the ability to choose where your inner life casts its light. This is both a craft and an ethic. In a time of competing signals, mastery of attention is power. Training attention is practical and gradual. Begin with constraint. Choose 3 domains that will receive devoted weekly attention. A relationship to repair, a skill to cultivate, a project to ship. Protect the windows of time needed to make incremental progress. Use rituals to guard those windows: a fixed start cue, a short centering breath, a consciously chosen endpoint. Over time, these blocks of attention deepen competence and generate signals worth following. Attention training also demands a vocabulary of noticing. Practice naming. Label thoughts as planning or worry. Label feelings as tightness, loss, curiosity. Label sensations in the body. Naming shrinks the fugitive power of experience and makes it actionable. When you name, you can choose whether to follow or to pause. Pause is the first tool of discernment. We must also resist the economy of distraction. Devices and platforms are engineered to capture micro attention and monetize it. Reclaim architecture batch communication, set notification-free zones, and create emphatic no-meeting days. Treat attention as money: budget it, invest it, and audit expenditures. When you align attention with values rather than habit, you become an agent rather than an object of attention. The awakened mind learns to use attention as leverage. Small acts of presence generate outsized returns because they tap leverage points. Conversations that change trajectories, design choices that prevent systemic failure, early interventions that save relationships. The pattern is simple: where you look, systems bend. Finally, training attention is social. Join small groups that practice focused work together, hold each other accountable, and share evidence. The social frame prevents relapse into scattered habits and scales the practice beyond the solitary individual. Attention is an ecosystem practice. You grow it better in a community that values it. If you want to survive and shape the future, start by deciding what deserves your gaze. Protect it fiercely. Over time, your attention will become the rudder by which your life navigates storms. The outer world demands competence, but competence collapses without depth. The inner work is not therapeutic luxury. It is the foundation of resilient action. To engage the future, you must know your interior terrain, the wounds that bias your choices, the comforts masquerading as strength, and the shadow, the cluster of dissound impulses that drive hidden behavior. Those who skip this excavation will discover later, in crisis, that their strategies fracture like thin ice under weight. Feeling is the first port of call. Modernity has trained many to mistrust emotion, treating it as the enemy of reason. But emotion is information, raw, fast, and invaluable. Anger signals boundary violation, grief signals loss that demands rearrangement, shame points to relational ruptures. Learn to decode emotion rather than deny it. Sitting with feeling without immediate reactivity is a discipline. It is an act of intelligence. In the pause, you gain clarity. What is the true demand beneath the effect? From there, you can craft precise action. Shadow work is deeper and less fashionable. The shadow contains patterns we were taught to hide: selfishness, envy, cowardice. It also contains creative energy repressed by shame. Ignoring the shadow is like building a house on a sinkhole. The structure may stand for a while, but the ground will eventually give. The practice here is brutal specificity. Name the pattern, own its origin, and practice small corrective acts that integrate rather than repress. For example, if you recognize a pattern of withdrawal under stress, design repair moves, advance notice, named break protocol, and accountability buddy. Integration reduces drama and increases fidelity in action. A third strand is moral imagination, envisioning consequences beyond the narrow self. The awakened cultivate empathy not as sentiment, but as calibration. Moral imagination checks whether proposed actions are consonant with generativity. When you practice imagining the downstream effects of choices on diverse lives, your decisions gain durability. Embodiment matters. The nervous system stores history. The body remembers what the mind forgets. Somatic practices, regulated breath, movement, sensory grounding, are not soft practices, but the scaffolding for sustainable action. The person who can regulate arousal under stress will think clearer and repair faster. This is the technology of resilience. Finally, the inner work is continuous. There is no endpoint. As systems change, new shadows appear, and old comforts calcify into new liabilities. Accept apprenticeship. Make inventory routines, periodic reviews of triggers, a circle that reflects back blind spots, rituals of confession and repair. Depth is not a badge, it is an ongoing commitment. Do this work and you will act from a center that is less easily destabilized. Your decisions will be less impulsive, your leadership less performative, and your influence more credible. The future does not reward people who are merely clever. It favors those whose inner axis holds. One mind wakes. That is necessary but insufficient. Two minds in disciplined relation begin to repattern their shared field. Groups of awake individuals catalyze institutional change because systems are built of repeated relationships and expectations. When a network decides to prioritize repair, depth, and long horizons, its ripple effects are structural. Hiring norms shift, incentives realign, and policies that once rewarded superficial metrics are replaced by practices that sustain life. This repatterning starts locally. A team that guards deep work time, models apology, and practices public repair will, over a few cycles, become a magnet. People who value depth migrate toward such fields, accelerating a cultural shift. Networks scale through practice, the small gestures that become norms. For leaders, this means modeling fidelity rather than commanding it. Walk the practices you promote. People notice gaps between talk and life far more readily than you imagine. Coalitions accelerate change. When organizations with similar commitments form networks, their combined influence can restructure markets and public expectations. Consider a set of companies that coordinate on reduced meeting norms and transparent evaluation. Candidates start valuing such employers, competitors adjust. Policy flows from scaled practice because institutions reify new expectations. Infrastructure matters. The awaken build institutions. Schools that teach attention, firms that measure impact over activity, community centers that host repair practices. These are not utopian projects, they are pragmatic investments. They transform the incentives that previously made distraction profitable and make depth sustainable. Small networks must also guard against capture. When practices scale, they can be co-opted by prestige or commodified into rituals without substance. Protect integrity with accountability, public measures, shared audits, and cultures that value honest reporting of failures. A practice that admits its errors is less likely to calcify into hypocritical performance. Finally, scaling requires patience. Cultural repatterning is generational work. It outlasts quarterly reporting rhythms and requires investment in mentorship, systems design, and durable funding. The awakened who plan only for the short term will be outmaneuvered by those who design for decades. Networks bend systems by changing what is expected and rewarded. Join, found, or sustain those networks. The next era is collective. Individual awakening is the spark, community is the fuel. The future does not care for brilliance in isolation, it favors iterative responsiveness. Adaptive creativity is a discipline, the capacity to craft prototypes, test quickly, accept failure as feedback, and reconfigure with humility. In a turbulent environment, the slow genius loses to the fast learner. Prototyping is methodical. Convert hypotheses into small experiments with limited downside. A new process, a community ritual, a policy change. Test it in a controlled environment, measure impact, and iterate. Rapid feedback shortens learning cycles. The discipline is not invention for spectacle, but disciplined curiosity plus accountability. Failure must be normalized as data. Too often, organizations hide mistakes to maintain image, which prevents learning. Create safe spaces for honest reporting. Postmortems that seek cause not blame, reward systems that recognize learning, and rituals that ritualize correction. When failure becomes a step in a known pathway, teams take necessary risks without catastrophic fear. Diversity of perspective accelerates adaptation. When a group contains varied experiences and cognitive styles, it generates more robust prototyping. Stress, test ideas against different vantage points, legal, ethical, community impact. This multi-axis testing prevents comfortable but brittle solutions. Crucially, adaptive creativity requires speed without sloppiness. The velocity must be paired with careful metrics and ethical guardrails. Rapid iteration is not an excuse for cavalier choices. It is a method to refine ethically, align solutions under real-world constraints. Finally, cultivate resilience by buffering core systems. While you experiment at the edge, protect core capacities, relationships, institutional memory, and basic trust. The fast learner who erodes core trust will find adaptation impossible when conditions demand solidarity. In the next era, those who combine creative speed with moral discipline will find leverage. The world rewards those who can learn, unlearn, and relearn faster than the environments they face.